Welcome back to the Doc B podcast. I'm Aaron Cook, Director of Program Evaluation and your host. Today, we're sitting down with someone whose story really captures what this podcast is all about. Our guest is Oscar Torres, a financial analyst here in CUSD. Oscar's journey started in Mendota, a small rural community, and along the way, he worked in the private sector, built his confidence, learned from setbacks, and ultimately found his way back home to serve students through school finance. What I appreciate about Oscar is that he brings both grit and heart to his work. He understands budgets, systems, and numbers, but he never loses sight of the kids those dollars are meant to serve. His perspective reminds us that even behind the scenes, roles play a powerful part in creating opportunities for students. Oscar, I'm really glad you're here. Welcome to the podcast. What's your story? Talk about where you're from, how your career developed away from CUSD, and how you eventually landed in your current role here.
Oscar Torres, financial analyst. I've been in the district for 2.5 years. I grew up in Mendota, California, 45 minutes west of Fresno, a rural disadvantaged community surrounded by agriculture. That influenced me to go to Fresno State as an ag major and then transitioned to finance. My work experience has been in food manufacturing, water treatment, and production-based private sector. When I found out there was an opening in Clovis Unified, I applied immediately. I remember not getting the job, but I didn't let that discourage me. It was my first go around. It took me off guard having a whole bunch of people sitting in that panel. Got nervous, started talking too fast, and I didn't get to show me. I didn't get to show my skill set. I feel like I didn't sell myself enough, but I didn't let that discourage me. The position reopened. I applied again. I was invited to a second interview. I knew what to expect. There's gonna be multiple people in the room. The second interview, that's where I was able to show what I know and have Kyle, Susan Rutledge, and Michael Ward verify what I knew and have belief in me that I was gonna be able to succeed in that financial analyst position.
So you mentioned you did not make it through in your first CUSD interview. Now looking back, how did that experience end up shaping your path in a positive way?
I was bummed out. You want something and they don't get it, but it was my fault. I knew what I did wrong. I wasn't confident at that time. I just wasn't ready to take that job. And it was a blessing in disguise because I stayed in my current role working for Dole Fresh Vegetables, which is an internationally recognized company. We sold produce. And I worked there for 4 years, but I always wanted to go back home. Don't get me wrong, I lived in Monterey. It's amazing. I had a blast. I loved every day that I lived there, but my heart is here. My family's here. And I always knew I wanted to come back. I just wanted to build up my resume. Even if I don't perform well in an interview, my resume can at least save me.
So do you think it was your resume that saved you, or was it something else that you needed?
It gave me confidence to say, I performed this. I oversaw this. And it was more of a confidence thing. It's a blessing because I went back to Monterey and continued at Dole. I learned a ton, was promoted shortly after that. I learned a different aspect of food manufacturing. As soon as that position reopened, I knew this is my time. When I told my old supervisor, I'm going to Clovis Unified, I'm accepting this position. Oh, that's Buchanan. I was like, how do you know? You've lived in Monterey County your entire life. Oh, it's because I was in track. I have a niece in track. And Buchanan is at the top of the list every darn year. Every single year they're at the top. I was surprised she didn't say Clovis High or Clovis West. She recognized Buchanan as Clovis Unified. She's not from the Central Valley, but for her to recognize Buchanan High solidified what I was looking for. I made the right decision.
So you mentioned Buchanan's track history and that connection to Clovis Unified's high standards. What else helped to expose you to our district, and who else may have helped you along the way?
I was an athlete. Growing up, Mendota athlete. I was a wrestler, big-time wrestler. Every time you went in a tournament, you knew when Clovis High was there. They were just like the big bad bullies. They took first all the time, always had a top-tier program. And you're like, how is this possible? How are they so far ahead from everyone else? And that's how I was first exposed. As soon as I was going to Fresno State, I started asking classmates, hey, where'd you go to school? Oh, I went to Clovis. I loved my experience there. The classes they were taking were prep ready. They were taking very unique robotics classes. I didn't have that opportunity in Mendota. We had a handful of electives where I didn't have the luxury to take a cooking class or a robotics class. That's kind of my first exposure to Clovis Unified and the opportunities that are provided to the students there.
People sometimes make assumptions about CUSD and what it must be like. As someone who did not attend CUSD schools, what was your assumption that you may have had, and what has your experience been since you've arrived?
There has always been a connotation with Clovis, this is the demographic, or this is what they look for, or this is the person that we feel is a fit to this organization. I have never once felt that way. Never once. I have never felt less. And it's quite the opposite. I felt seen. Everyone was asking me, hey, how's it going? They called me by my first name, which is a small act, but when it's coming from the superintendent and the deputy superintendent, it feels like, man, I feel seen, like they know I'm here. And it's a good feeling. It's a family feel. You can feel the culture, and it starts with the employees. We have to buy in. I feel like the group here has bought in. That's the amazing part.
What's something unique to school finance that you had to learn quickly once you got here?
I've never worked in school finance. There's this 37-digit accounting code I've never been exposed to, and you're only exposed to that if you're in school finance. So that was a huge learning curve. Being able to break down that long accounting string into digestible pieces. I had a lot of success relating with office managers because a lot of the office managers didn't know either. So we were both learning as we went. Hey, this is how I learned it. Maybe we learned the same way or a similar way. The object tells us what we're purchasing and the site tells us who's buying it. So every single one of those segments tell me something. Now that I know the accounting string, it's easier to navigate through.
So far from your experience, can you describe the Clovis Unified vibe? Is there a story that shares that experience?
Workforce is super competitive. We're all competing as a team, but we're trying to see who's the better analyst. How close can we be with our budgets to our end of year actuals? Iron sharpens iron. I'm trying to be the best analyst in my finance department. How much were you off? How much was I off? I was off by this amount. And we all handle different budgets, right? So the special education budget is multi-million dollars, right? So we can't compare multi-million dollars with this small fund. But when you break it down to percentages, it's like I was off by 5%. That's when we start saying, hey, I was pretty close at this budget. You handled it last year and you're off by 9%. We poke fun at each other, but it's harboring that competitive nature where we are one team, but if we're competitive amongst each other, that only makes our department better.
So now you're in a position where you aren't asked to help your company make a profit. You're now here for the benefit of spending money and monitoring the spending of money to enhance the learning of students. So what does it mean to you to work for a district that puts students at the center of every decision? And how does that apply to the world of accounting?
So that means everything. I think for us, it's how can we help this school site maximize their money? They may want a certain field trip, or they may want to do a certain event, but don't know how to fund it. That's where I come in, and I want to maximize their budget and decrease where they're not actually using and increase where there's a need. Let's budget for this. I can find little pockets of money where we can actually go to this field trip and pull off this event. What we don't want is for a school site to have this idea and not be able to do it because of the funds.
Is there a particular school or site you've worked with that you feel especially connected to?
I think a school that I have a close connection with, Pinedale. It reminds me of Mendota. It's a very small school, economically disadvantaged families. It's helping the principal, helping the office managers. How do we use every single dollar in our account for these kids? I see myself in those kids. That was me. I grew up in that similar situation. I've never attended, but I love that school.
Where do you think your grit comes from, and what experiences help build it?
Wrestling is a very tough sport. It's one-on-one. It instills grit. Practice is hard. Practice is ran with the heater on. You're sweating, you're trying to make weight. There's a lot of obstacles to overcome. You may lose a round, but you have to come back, make it up, or win by pin. You're put in a corner where if this round plays out, I'm not gonna win the match. So I have to go all in. That's the thing with wrestling. It instills grit. It's hard. Nothing about that sport is easy.
Which of CUSD's core values do you recognize as a key to your employment?
For me, it's the fair break for every kid. Every kid matters. Every kid has a right for education. Every kid has the world in front of them. So I think it's important for us in budget and finance to provide the funding that a certain school needs to be able to provide a top-tier educational experience.
You shared earlier that wrestling made you develop grit. Where did you learn those foundational skills, and what challenges early in life shaped the way you approach school and those opportunities?
It started with my parents. They instilled hard work. They did hard work. They were all farm labor, very low-paying jobs, manual labor. It was always like, how do I break that? I don't want to do that. How do I become better? How can I provide for myself in a way where I don't have to use my body, or I don't have to get home physically exhausted? Life doesn't have an even playing field. Some might start here, some might start here. So it's knowing that life isn't fair. Growing up was hard. It was hard. My parents didn't speak English. They weren't telling me to read this English book. It was read this Spanish book. I felt like I had a disadvantage because I didn't have parents that spoke English. Our household, growing up, all Spanish. There wasn't a single English word. So it sets you back because I'm not practicing speaking English at home. I'm fluent in Spanish, thankfully, but I was always behind. I was always a C student when it came to ELD. I was a migrant student as well. I know my flaws and my strengths and my weaknesses, and English might be my weakness, but how do I get better? What can I do to strengthen my English skills? When I got to high school, give me all the books I can read. I started going to the library because I was in 9th grade, but my reading level was at 7th. It was kind of humbling. It was, in a way, embarrassing because you're not at that reading standard, but my math skills were top tier. Math is the universal language. You speak with these numbers. Numbers are a language by itself, but reading and writing, that's an area that I struggled the most. As I grew older and went to college, it was making sure that I strengthened that skill.
What resources or people help you most as you were trying to build skills and confidence?
I took advantage of all the resources that I could. I would stay after school. I would go to the library. I would talk to the librarian. The more you do the little things like that, the more it builds your confidence. It strengthens your skills that you lack. It was hard because I'm hard on myself. And knowing I wasn't up to par with my peers, I was frustrated. But the whole thing was, how can I get better? But I was a good math student. I took calculus in high school, and I was very proud of it. But there was also this SAT that you have to take, and you know that there's an ELD portion, and you're nervous about that. I may not have the highest scores. I may not have straight A's, but I am going to work extremely hard to make up for what I lack.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who wants to grow professionally and take real ownership of their development, especially when it comes to understanding their strengths and weaknesses?
Focus, evaluate yourself. Have an honest conversation with yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Make sure your strength is really a strength. You might say, I'm strong at that, but you may not be as strong at that skill as your peers. So make sure your strength is, in reality, the strength, and your weakness, how can I strengthen that? How can I get better at a certain skill?
So when you think about the leadership culture in our district, what do you think has shaped it the most? And who embodies that in a way that stands out to you?
I've never met Doc, but there's a reason why these letters are on this wall and these quotes are all over our district. With Barry Yeager and Susan Rutledge, what I love about them is there may be a complex situation, but they make sure there's a why behind the what. And I love that saying because it breaks it down to something very digestible where everyone can understand. Barry does a great job, tremendous job. When he talks, he wraps it up. This is the what, this is the why. And I appreciate that. Sue also does the why behind the what. I'll give an example. Federal funding might be cut. Sue displays that perfectly. There's a lot of funding up in the air. Should we budget for Title III? Should we budget for these federal funds? But never once has a panic button been pressed. There hasn't been some worry around her district, whether people are going to lose their jobs because this federal fund is going to go away. I don't believe we're going to get there because Sue does a really good job of understanding what's going on, but there's also a plan. And that plan is taking place and may be behind closed doors. And once that plan is solid, she'll share that plan.
So let's talk about a few of Doc's philosophies. Specifically, what does monitoring systems are essential to accomplish goals look like in your department?
Leveraging the tools we have. It's being able to quickly look at certain sites' budgets, let them know this is the dollar amounts that you have available. As a district, it allows us to be versatile and pivot quickly because we're able to run those numbers and see what's our budget, where are we at? What if we remove this from our budget or add these expenses? We can quickly do that with the systems that we have today. By leveraging our financial system, we're able to squeeze every dollar. We're looking to see where are pockets of money that haven't been used in the past. How can we utilize those funds? If they're just in a fund that's not being used, that's not good for anyone. Let's move those funds into a resource that you can utilize to benefit kids.
Now let's move on to the next one. How does autonomy with responsibility shape the way you analyze a budget?
Yeah, so with budgets, there's 1,001 ways to analyze a budget, and everyone has a different approach. You may go straight to Munis, download this report, but you don't have the context. You don't know what the program director has planned. I always fall back on let's communicate, let's have a meeting, let's see what your plan is. What should we expect? This spreadsheet doesn't tell me. I can see what you're currently budgeting for, but I don't know if there are any unexpected costs that we should be taking into consideration.
What does ride for the brand mean to you in your role, and when have you felt that most clearly?
Ride for the brand, I've experienced that firsthand. I represent CART, so I'm at the CART board meetings. CART has Clovis Unified and Fresno Unified personnel. I am a Clovis Unified employee. I try to go above and beyond when I present financial information because I represent Clovis. I'm a Clovis financial analyst. I oversee CART, but I am a Clovis employee and a representation of Clovis. So if I'm saying something wrong, or if I go in slouchy, or if I don't go professionally dressed, what are they going to say about that? They're going to be like, oh, Clovis is just letting their employees do X, Y, Z. I don't want that. I want to uphold that standard, that a Clovis financial analyst is going to be on top of their game. It's going to be quick to analyze, sharp. For me, that's what Ride for the Brand is.
When you think about leading through relationships as part of your work, what does that look like in practice with school site teams?
Building relationships is on the top of my skill set. Office managers have a hard job. Budgets, dealing with kids, angry parents. There's a lot of things that they're dealing with staff. There's a lot of things that they have to do, and budgets is a very, very small portion of their job. Put that on me. How can I help the office manager with their budgets so they can spend the least amount of time in scenario or in Munis? Once they check off that box, they can help their principal. They can help that parent. They can be more involved with students as opposed to the admin budget side. I always took that upon myself. Let me take the extra step, extra 2 steps to alleviate some of that pressure from the office manager, put that on my shoulders, and then that office manager will have more time to be on the kid side.
When decisions get complicated, especially around budgets, what keeps you grounded in your why?
It's for the kids, period. It's for the kids, and that's it. Having that as the only goal, I wouldn't say the only goal, but the main goal makes things clear. Why am I doing this? Well, I want to maximize this budget for the kids. What can I do to enhance that experience for them?
You may have heard a docism that says, we're too poor to buy cheap. What do you think that means, and how does that connect with you?
Quick fix. A quick fix may be something easy, something fast, but it may not be the permanent solution. If we're gonna invest X amount of dollars into something fast, where we can invest 1.x of it and find a permanent solution, let's go that route and find a permanent fix. And we're not having to go back and revisit that one issue. That takes time, it takes effort, it takes people away from their desks to find an alternative solution where we could have fixed that from the get-go. If you do it once, you don't have to do it again.
I love this. You're making accounting sound super cool. Let's have you share how Clovis Unified is special from your perspective.
I think it's the culture. I think it starts with leadership, or superintendent or deputy superintendent. They have this quote or they have this vision, and we buy in. And whenever we're talking with the office manager or the principal, it's the district office translating and pushing that message. We're trying to spread positivity as well. What we don't want is for the office manager to answer the call and be like, oh, it's budget and finance, I'm gonna get in trouble. Or I did something wrong. It's like, no, I'm trying to help you out. We're all in the same team, and I want to leave a positive impact on the office manager, and they can use that positivity to the site. If that phone call doesn't go well, or if it's a negative phone call, what's going to happen when a student goes right in front of the office manager right after that phone call? But if it's a good phone call and it's positive, we're building a relationship, and that positivity is going to translate towards the kids. Whenever they see my name on the phone, oh, Oscar's calling, as opposed to, oh man, I'm going to get in trouble. I did something wrong, or my scenario's out of balance. We don't want that. We want, okay, like I haven't talked to Oscar in a long time. I want to see what he's been up to. I want to see how his new role. It's more about, you're the office manager and I'm the analyst. I know you and you know me, and we both care about each other and we both have the same objective, and it's to excel in our roles. But I also want to know about you.
As a newer employee, what do you wish you knew on day one of your employment that you know now that you wish you would have known then?
When I first started in my financial analyst one position, I was site-based, working with sites. But I never knew the org chart, right? All my email communications straight to the office manager. It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should include the principals. So my next email was office manager principals. Well, maybe I should have included the area secretaries. The area secretaries should be in the know as well. So it's kind of like the org chart where who should be in this email communication and who should be in the know. It's important for all of us to be on the same page and all of us to have good communication amongst departments. And over communication isn't always bad. Under communicating is really bad. And I think that was one of my flaws when I first started. I never knew who should be involved or who should I add to this email, who needs to know. People were missed on my initial email conversations, little things like that. Okay, I learned my lesson. You have to roll with the punches and learn from the bruises, but it all works out in the end. You learn from your mistakes. It's my job to not make the same mistake twice.
What makes you optimistic about your future here?
I have been given the opportunity to learn more and grow in different departments. I started as a financial analyst 1, working with sites. Then I transitioned to a financial analyst 2, working with departments and department leads. And now in my current role, financial analyst 3, overseeing joint power authorities, which is much more niche and on its own island. But I've applied and taken advantage of those opportunities. I've been told no as well. When I was a financial analyst 1, applying for a financial analyst 3, I was told no, but I didn't let that discourage me. I didn't let that, oh, you know what, they don't want me, or man, like, I'm just not a fit here. I was applying from 1 to 3 because I want to see what the interview is about. I want to see who's interviewing. I want to know what questions are being asked. And I want to tell my bosses, hey, I'm here and I want more. It shows a lot when someone is applying from 1 to 3 because they know, yeah, the odds were against me. I'm telling Kyle and Sue, I see myself here and I want a bigger role than what I currently have.
Doc talked about hiring is the most important thing we do. Do you agree?
That's what sets our district apart. I think with other districts, it's like, well, this person has 20 years here and they're next in line and they give it to that person, but their skill set might not be aligned with the position that they're walking into. We have to hire the best person, regardless of X amount of years. If we strongly believe and trust that this person is going to excel in this role, let's do it.
What advice would you give a brand new employee about living out Doc's philosophies?
Here at Clovis Unified, no one has an easy job. It's hard. We have a large workload and our jobs are important. Once you get your job done, it's so satisfying. You're proud of yourself and there's this sense of fulfillment that, I did it. I did a great job. I did the best that I can. How can I improve next year? What can I do to be better? For a new employee, it's going to be hard. There's a big learning curve. Keep your head up. Be competitive with yourself on wanting to learn more about different departments. And it's kind of like this continuous improvement on being better with your budgets, being better with communicating with people, being better presenters. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. You cannot put your head down because that doesn't help anyone. And you're letting yourself down if you throw in the towel and you're like, hey, this is too hard, I'm not gonna do it. Or you're dragging your feet and you don't wanna buy into a new process. That makes it difficult and that doesn't serve anyone good. I think it's hard, but very rewarding.
What's one hope you have for CUSD's future?
So our district is changing. Demographics are changing. There's new development in the southern part of our district. And how can we make sure we're serving that demographic? It's changed a whole ton from 5 years ago and the development of the Southeast Fresno. But it's keeping that in mind. We're constantly evolving district. Clovis Unified is a destination district where kids are coming from outside districts, Fresno Unified, Sanger Unified, Madera Unified, coming into Clovis so their kid can attend a Clovis Unified school. I think that just goes to show the great work that we're doing. How can we better support those kids?
Who's one person you could thank for supporting you early in your journey and why?
So for me, Kyle Ellis works his butt off. I don't know a person that works harder than that guy. Having a manager that puts in the hours that he puts in, the amount of work that he puts in, the attention to detail, and at the same time, making sure that all of the analysts are good. He's here on time, leaves later than any of us, sends emails late. He is a different breed. It's awesome to be part of his team because I know how hard he works. I think what Kyle displays is above and beyond. It breeds excellence because we're seeing our manager work his tail off. We want to work just as hard. And our peers want to work just as hard. We have to get the job done and there's a standard we have to uphold that the job that we do has to be right and it has to be accurate. It can't be incomplete. We can't give something to our board that's incomplete. It has to be 100% vetted and we have to have confidence that what we're telling our board is correct.
So could you make more money working in the private sector? And if so, you stay here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the ceiling is higher, you can make more money, but at the same time, the sense of fulfillment with working with kids and making an impact, it may be indirect, but you're making an impact. When I go to CART and have board meetings, I'm walking through campus with my blazer and tie. Those kids are looking at me as a role model. Like, hey, this guy is the financial analyst for CART, or this is how you dress a professional. It's those little things that we're all educators. Me walking down that campus is me being an educator, whether it's during the lunch hour, whether it's after school, showing up for the board meeting with the blazer on, with the tie on, that sends a message.
Did you ever see yourself as a professional when you were a teenager living in Mendota?
Never. Never. I grew up thinking I was gonna be my dad. You grow up idolizing your dad. Like, oh, my dad's such a tough guy. He works his blue collar job. And as a kid, that's my future. Not labor work, but being a supervisor at a production company or something like that. But you have to reevaluate and set the bar higher, right? I set this bar, I'm gonna be a supervisor for this production company. That was my goal. But as I went to college and I started learning, I was like, well, I don't wanna do that. I may have thought that was cool at one point, but let's raise the bar.
So you've made mention of your dad. What about your parents? What do they want for you?
My parents are very humble and say, whatever you do, we're gonna have your back 100%. Whether you want to work as a mailman, whether you want to work in the AC in the office somewhere, we're gonna have your back 100%. But for a strange reason growing up, I always thought myself, like, I wanna be that. A guy in a Silverado truck driving around the fields. That was my dream. But as you grow older, it's like, no, I gotta reevaluate, what do I really wanna be? But there's this connotation like, oh, you're sitting in a building in AC. That's a luxury. It makes me laugh. Growing up, that was my dream. I think it's good to reevaluate yourself, your goals. What are some of the metrics, or where do I wanna be in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years? I would have never pictured myself here, but I'm glad I made that decision to apply for the second time.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share that embodies the spirit of CUSD?
I enjoy working here, love it here, love the people here, and a lot of the things, like some of your trainings where hiring is the most important thing that we do. That is one of the single most important things, if not the most important thing. Everyone works hard, buys into the culture, is welcoming. I haven't had a bad day at work.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing from someone who makes CUSD a special place for students and families. This podcast is dedicated to every classified and certificated employee who shows up each day to enrich student lives and help them be their best in mind, body, and spirit. We'll see you next time on the Doc B Podcast. As Doc always said,
Or ever forget our motto.
Sickle.